As Tim Cantor reached his late 30s, the trepidations of time and existence began to make way into his thoughts. His accumulating years were not as worrisome from the standpoint of vanity as they were from the fears they instilled towards the measure of time he had left. Though saddening, it was these inescapable fears that brought about visualizations for some of his most powerful paintings. Due to this uprising of apprehension, Tim began work on a sequence of self-portrait paintings, 3 unique images that transpired during his 38th to 42nd years. Tim Cantor titled the first of these unusual portraits Through the Waters, and is peculiarly based on emotive thoughts of how to deeply express fond feelings to his wife in the highest regard. With this aspiration in mind, he did not fall short of his odd ways of linking vision to meaning, as he conjured himself very old, with his wedding ring still joined to his finger on his left hand. Out from his right palm comes a legion of intricate detail that represents a lifetime of creation, keen to one objective: devotion. The manner that Tim went about the creation of aging his likeness grew to be quite calculated, yet still very experimental, since it was an objective that he had never previously attempted. The figure's slender arms and torso are thinned down. He depicted the delicate aspect of aging skin by painting it seemingly transparent as it drapes over beautifully rendered veins that pulse with a barely visible sheen of blue. The face is that of an elderly, wizened and creased translation of Tim's characteristic lineament. Initially, his portrait began as an entirely imagined subject, but in the midst of the painting's creation, Tim had moved into his new studio, where next to his chair was a window that peered back through the night with his own mirror image. Tim naturally began drawing upon that reflection as a source of vantage regarding shadow. In doing so, the shape of the eyes, nose, mouth, cheeks, and jaw all began to resemble that of the artist himself. The added lines of age were integrally imagined as he deepened the shadows beyond where his instinct would have normally told him to settle. The effective conclusion is a possible rendition of Tim Cantor, as he may appear as an elderly man. Through the Waters is a masterful work of art that vastly reveals Tim Cantor's talent, both in painterly skill and philosophical consideration. But this painting excels with devotion beyond its deftly aesthetic surface. It abstractly delivers a romantic letter from the artist to his wife, telling her that he will love her throughout eternity. Tim admits that his explanation for this painting is quite personal and perhaps overly dramatic, but he himself is inherently drawn to intentionally expressive themes. He is attracted to dramatic stage, dramatic films, dramatic art and writings. And it is those innate theatrical lures that inspire the ideas for much of what he envisions. Yet what a painting means to Tim may not always be obvious to the viewer, and it is that mystery that drives one to search deeper for what is written within his compositions. His distorted ways of portraying his emotions beguilingly forms a far more memorable painting than if the image rendered its meaning directly. However cryptic the delivered message, deep personal feelings are the underlying motivation for the majority of Tim Cantor's art. He speaks his most reserved sentiments throughout his paintings, but there is an apparent contrast between the person and the artist. Perhaps he holds back his spoken words of love, pain, and passion because he knows exactly how he intends his feelings to be revealed. Perhaps there is less of a contrast between the person and artist than it seems, for if his disposition was more transparent, the impact of his art might be decreased. Whatever the truth may be, there is an absorbing curiosity to the indecipherable connection between the art and the person who creates it. Nevertheless, the emotion that he paints and writes about is undeniably from the heart, and this is where his passion outshines his coyness. When he actually does speak of the tangible artifact that he has formed, strong inner feelings that are at the core of his art tend to gradually emerge from his subdued voice. One can sense the deep emotional ties that he retains for individual works. These paintings utter one man's memories, moods, infatuations, and often express amorous sentiments of love. These paintings are, essentially, the children of his passion. In the early part of 2010, Tim began the creation of another painting titled Duality, which would develop into a more clearly defined self-portrait that represented him at his current age. He painted Duality on a specially prepared panel that he had made to fit a cherished frame that was hand-carved for him in Venice, Italy. The composition began with the idea of characterizing an internal conflict. Tim Cantor has verbally conveyed that this is what the painting does in fact depict, but the nature of the conflict has not been clarified, nor has he written an expressive poem for the painting. Duality is a work of art that carries with it a yearning mystery that pleads for more explanation, but leaves the observer with little factual insight beyond the image itself. To continue on about this painting could easily grow into an endless discourse of speculation. Perhaps this was Tim Cantor's objective after all, for in this case he has added all the more intrigue by staying silent, particularly because Tim Cantor has become notorious for sharing such emotion and meaning into his work. What is the conflict that Duality portrays? This is a question that only the painter himself can answer, and so far, he has not. In 2011, Tim Cantor began creating a third painting that embraced his own likeness once again. However, this composition, titled The Conduct of Life, portrays an entire lifetime of one person. Youth, adulthood, and old age are presented through three figures that symbolize three stages of life for a singular individual. Given the clear likeness of the central figure, we can confidently receive this as a representation of Tim Cantor himself. Once these particulars are known, the conduct of life carries a prevailing awareness that the measure of life weighs heavy in the artist's mind. Likewise, it illustrates that this concern is one that affects him at his present age, for there is a placid tenor to both the young figure and the old. Both heads are slightly tilted, the hands are loosely held in a way that relays a peaceful impression. However, the central figure that resembles the artist reigns with tension. The eyes, the jaw, and the right hand all clench with intensity. Tim Cantor has never essentially claimed the conduct of life as an actual self-portrait. Whether his hesitance is owing to humility or deliberate mystery, one cannot help but add this characterization to the many respects that this notable painting warrants. Tim has, however, described his initial inspiration for the composition as stemming from his recollections of childhood, of having no worries or thoughts of the future. Yet now, he says, he wishes he could clear his mind of the apprehensions of aging and the phobias of the unknown. This painting is a direct effect of that fear, but it is contrastingly and equally a result of hope. Tim Cantor created this painting with thoughts of life in its entirety, of youth, of the years in between, and the desire to reach old age, to be entirely fulfilled, to be at peace, to be in love, and ultimately to die without regret.